Hello and welcome to the Fish and Aquatic Resources episode in the Resource Explainer video series for the proposed Delta Conveyance Project Draft Environmental Impact Report, or EIR, where we break down the contents of various chapters in the document. My name is Gardner Jones. I'm the Aquatic Resources Program Manager for the Delta Conveyance Project, or DCP, and the lead for the Endangered Species Act and the California Endangered Species Act permitting effort for the project. This video describes Chapter 12. Our focus is on fish and aquatic resources. We will provide just a few key highlights rather than a full summary. The draft EIR, which is now available for public review and comment, was prepared to comply with the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. The document evaluates a range of alternatives to the proposed project, which are all analyzed at the same level of detail. Chapter 12 describes existing fish and aquatic resource conditions, analyzes any impacts related to fisheries that could result from construction, operation, or maintenance of the project, and identifies measures to reduce the effects of any potentially significant impacts. A potential impact refers to a change from the existing baseline condition that could result from the project or each project alternative. Mitigation refers to actions that are meant to avoid, minimize, or compensate for an identified impact. The agency must adopt all feasible mitigations as a part of project approval. We selected fish and aquatic species for analysis in coordination with state and federal fishery agencies, including the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Marine Fisheries Service, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The species chosen were selected based on their importance, vulnerability, and potential to be affected by construction activities and changes in water operations under the project alternatives. During the conceptual design process, we focused on ways to limit in-water work activities like barge trips and pile driving to avoid potential fisheries impacts. Other design ideas, like T-screens for the intakes, have helped to limit the overall construction footprint, including the construction area within the river. The project alternatives include what we call operational criteria to minimize and avoid potential impacts to aquatic resources, both through the delta and at the intakes themselves. This operational criteria is based in part on advice from the fishery agencies. The criteria set different types of water velocity requirements to protect certain fish in specific conditions. The criteria also limit pumping based on different amounts of flow in the river. The study area is based on the location of the potential effects associated with the project alternatives. It is in these areas that construction of new facilities or new and modified operations due to any of the project alternatives could affect fish and aquatic resources. The primary study area is the Delta and the Suisun Bay and Marsh region. The bays downstream and river systems upstream from the Delta would have minimal or even no changes in flow or reservoir storage conditions. As such, the project alternatives are not expected to have biological impacts to fish species in these areas. Analyses considered habitat conditions and environmental parameters such as flows, salinity, food web dynamics, water quality, water clarity or turbidity, contaminants, fish passage, non-native invasive species, and predation, among other topics. Potentially significant impacts requiring mitigation include the effects of construction on fish and aquatic species generally, and of operations and maintenance on several specific species. For listed salmonids, proposed changes in flow at and downstream of the intakes have the potential to decrease migration rates, alter migration routing, and increase exposure to predation. These changes, although minor, are considered potentially significant for listed salmonids when considered over multiple generations. Proposed operations-related changes in flows downstream of the intakes have the potential to reduce a number of factors that affect delta smelt, including food and sediment supply, known to be important to habitat quality. These changes are minor, but given the dire status of the population, we are considering this to be a potentially significant effect. With mitigation, these potential impacts are less than significant. Compensatory mitigation identified in the Fish and Aquatic Resources chapter primarily includes tidal and channel margin habitat restoration. This restoration will be identified and implemented in consultation with state and federal fish and wildlife agencies to not only offset habitat removed or impacted through construction activities, but also to further minimize operational effects of the new screened intakes. We will use the Adaptive Management and Monitoring Program to monitor and consider the design and operation of the new North Delta diversions, as well as proposed habitat mitigation measures, and determine whether refinements in design, management, and/or operation in compliance with environmental permits is needed. If you would like to review the Draft Eir, or this chapter in particular, please visit www.deltaconveyanceproject.com. Comments on the Draft Eir can be submitted by email, regular mail, verbally at a public hearing, or through our website. Your comments will be considered and all substantive comments will be responded to in the final EIR. Thanks for watching.